Hello, good evening. My name is Chineku Ore and you're welcome to our Raising Outstanding Children live session. And today you're going to be looking at how to help your children fall in love with reading. How to help your children fall in love with reading. Please quickly let me know where you're logging in from, where you're watching from, just so I have an idea of who is here with me. Like I said, today we are looking at how to help your children to fall in love with reading. Why I thought that this session was important was because I've had a lot of people approach me and talk about the concerns they have with their children who seem not to be interested in reading, and it seems that the problem is getting worse now than when I was younger. In fact, when I was younger, from what I can remember, reading was a top leisure activity for me and a lot of people that also grew up around me. And thinking back, I feel that probably one of the reasons why this was so was because we did not have too many alternatives. We did not have too many alternatives. So we just had to read. If you can remember, back in the day in places like Nigeria, TV didn't come on till like 4 in the evening, and there weren't too many interesting activities on TV. So there just had to be another way to get yourself engaged, and that made us choose the option of reading. Unfortunately for me, I grew up in an environment where we had a library for children. So because of that, it was easy for me to quickly borrow different types of books and all that. So, but these days, some of these things have changed. So the first thing I want to talk about is why reading is important. The first thing I want to talk about is why reading is important, and then we'll take it from there. We'll now go on to what we can do to actually get our children to fall in love with reading. I hope you can hear me. If you're here and you can help me hear me, please let me know in the comment section that you're here and you can hear me. Thank you so much. So why is reading important, really? That reading is important for quite a number of reasons. One of the first things I would say is that reading helps children. It exposes children to new knowledge, new culture, new norms. It's a way of exposing our children to the world that is beyond them. Sometimes children might not have the opportunity to travel much. In fact, no matter how much opportunity they have, it isn't really possible for them to go across all the nations of the world. But within the pages of the books, children are exposed to so much. For me, I can remember growing up, I learned a lot of things from reading books. I hadn't traveled to any of those places, but I had a fair idea of what those cultures were and the things that obtained in those settings. And I could, identify with those things just from the pages of the book. In fact, for me, I felt that movies never did justice to any story. If you had read a book and watched a movie of that same book, the difference is so clear. The books gives you the details that movies will not even give you. So one of the key things that reading does for every child is that it exposes the child to new knowledge, new culture, new norms. They learn so much. And another thing is that it helps children with their vocabulary and with their communication. I always tell my children, I can never remember while growing up going to the dictionary much to look for words. Most of the words I came across them in books. And then when I read those words, because of how it is used in the context, I just have an idea of what those words meant. So one way of improving your vocabulary is through reading books. And of course, when you improve your vocabulary, you find out how words are used in context, you find out how to structure your sentences. Ultimately, it will help with communication. So that is the second importance of reading that I'll talk about today. And another thing I would say is that reading helps to improve focus and concentration. And this is contrary to what screens do. Yeah, because when you watch a lot of movies, or you do stuff on your laptops, computers, and different electronic devices, the blue light and all that makes people to lose concentration. And you find out that these days, you find out the children find it difficult to stay still for a long period of time. We hear so much about ADHD. We hear so much about a lot of attention deficit disorders and all that all over the place. Children would rather not read. They will not want to settle down to do any activity that takes a long time, because over time they've been conditioned to, move from one thing to the other very quickly, and they get easily distracted. But when you are engrossed in the book, you find out that you're doing the same activity for a stretch in time. So over time, it's been shown that reading helps to improve focus and also to improve concentration. If you have experienced any of these things I'm saying, you can please say so in the comment section. Whatever else is the advantage of reading that you have observed, please also share with us in the comment section. Then another thing about reading is that it helps with relaxation. In fact, the study has shown that reading for, even if it's just 6 minutes a day, can reduce stress levels by as much as 68%. Reading is a form of leisure. Reading is a way to get one to be relaxed. Now, I'm not talking about reading horror movies, horror stories just before going to bed and things like that. But you could read things that are engaging and they are fun, and then over time it helps to relieve stress and help you to relax. So reading is the means of relaxation. And reading also helps to improve memory. Yes, because think about it, in the course of reading, you're exposed to different characters, settings that you have to link in the course of your story to be able to make sense of what you're reading. So somehow it helps you to build your memory, because you have to recall facts over and again, and that also translates to improving your memory across board. So you find out that even with the elderly, if they expose themselves to reading more often, chances of them having memory issues is actually reduced. So this is all backed up by research, and this is not something that happens automatically overnight, but with consistent practice. So I'm sure you agree with me that reading is very important. That's why I said that reading is a life skill. Then another thing that I want to say is the importance of reading is that when children learn to read for leisure, it helps them to improve their reading speed, which they can also translate to reading for their own studies. Because sometimes you find out that children that find it difficult to read for leisure find it difficult to also read for their studies. So if you want your child to do better with studying, you have to get your child to start falling in love with reading. And then this starts from when the child is as very young. But even if your children are older, they can still learn. I was reading up something, and it said that these days that research has shown that progressively over time, the population of children less than 18 years that enjoy reading is constantly declining, and it is even worse amongst the male gender than the female gender. And I must say that most of the people that normally ask me about how they can help their children to fall in love with reading are parents of boys. So research has shown that boys' interest in reading is less than girls, but generally interest in reading is declining year in, year out. Excuse me. So and one of the reasons why children say that they don't like reading is because according to them, they do not find interesting things to read. That is one of the many reasons. And I think that's not the only reason why. Like I had said earlier, when we were growing up, we didn't have many alternatives for leisure. We didn't have so many programs on TV. There was no internet, social media, and all these distractions, these video games and what have you. So somehow you just had to read to keep yourself busy, and we really enjoyed it. So to the topic of today, how can you as a parent help your child to fall in love with reading? It's actually possible. I've had people that come to me and they tell me that they want their children to love reading, but they themselves, they don't read. It's almost impossible for your children to fall in love with reading when they don't see it anywhere, where they don't know that it is possible to actually enjoy reading. So the first thing any parent that wants his or her child to love reading should do is to model it to the children. You, dear parent that wants your child to fall in love with reading, how much reading do you do? Yesterday, I put out a poster and I asked, which one do you prefer, reading or watching TV? I had some people saying that they actually preferred watching TV, and some people said that they actually preferred reading. The truth is, if you don't read, chances are your children will not fall in love with reading. For some people, they are fortunate to send their children to schools that promote the reading culture, and somehow the children imbibe it. But the point I'm trying to make is that if the children don't see it anywhere, chances of them adopting it is limited. So as a parent, the first thing I want to encourage you to do is to model reading. Make reading a big deal. Make reading fun. Show them how much of fun it is for you when you read. Let them see you reading every time, and it will spark their interest if you do it consistently over time. So the first thing is to model it. Another thing is to make sure that there are resources around for them if they want to read. They should also have resources available. So scatter books around, scatter reading materials around. Let them just have something that they can read if they want to read. Because some children will say that why they don't read is because they don't have anything to read. And unfortunately, we don't really have so many libraries like in the developed world where you could actually go to the library. But as a parent, you have to find a way to circumvent these issues and these challenges. So like I said, the first thing is to model it and make the resources available. And then the second thing you can do as a parent is to structure it. I've always been the proponent of 3 things: be who you want your child to be, model who you want your child to be, and then structure what you want your child to become. So how do you build structure? How do you build structure? So I'd say that one thing you should do, for example, if you have younger children, you could make it a routine that you read during at bedtime. You have bedtime stories, but consistently they see you reading to them even from when they are 0. If they are older, you can still read to them or you can read with them, but in your daily family schedule, let it be that there is a time for reading. Maybe it can be 30 minutes before they go to bed, and when you structure it, make sure that you follow through. Probably you could give them rewards, but make sure you follow through and ensure that if you're supposed to read by this time, they are actually reading by that time. So it has to be part of the structure. And then for your children that have schools that have libraries, also encourage them to borrow books from the library, because you might not be able to buy all the books that they need, but they can always borrow from the library. For younger children in primary school where you have communication parts, you can write in the communication book and tell the teacher to ensure that this child goes to the library to borrow a book. There are some schools that insist that the children should read at least 1 book a week, and then they should do something like a summary of what they have read. So then you too can implement that at home. Make sure they read and probably provide a summary to you just to be sure that they actually did read. So that's it. Make sure that there is a structure in place and follow through to ensure that they are consistent with it. And you yourself try to model it. Some of the other things I would say is that you should try to make reading fun. Like in my home, I started throwing what I called reading parties. And when it was time to read, everybody would pick his or her book, myself inclusive, and we'll all sit down with popcorn and read. The same way you will sit down to watch a movie on a movie night, you can sit down with your children and throw your reading party. Everybody is reading at the same time. Because what happens is that children feel that reading is boring. But let's just say that you get an interesting book and you all sit down at the same time and you are all reading. By the time they've finished maybe the first chapter of the book and they've caught the gist of the book, it becomes interesting and they want to go on. But you have to set the stage because they wouldn't ordinarily want to go and take the book. So if you have created a time, created the system and make it fun, then they might want to start reading. Another thing I also do with my children is that I read with them, and maybe we're reading a book together. I read one page, they read the next page. As we are alternating, they are reading. And I want to say something else. Reading is not restricted to only reading fiction. That's a mistake that we make. Sometimes as parents, if your child is not reading a proper storybook, you feel that the child is not reading. And like I had said earlier, some people have said that the reason why they don't like reading is because they don't find anything interesting to read. So you have to identify what your child's likes are. Maybe you can first of all expose them to different types of books, different genres, and from that to be able to identify what their likes are. Maybe you know their likes from what they like watching on TV. If they like watching about a particular character, you could get books that align with their interests. Or let's say your child is a hands-on child that likes doing stuff. You can get instructional text. There are still books. What do I mean by instructional text? Books that talk about how to do something or how to build something. So they'll be reading the how to and then be implementing. So the reading is aligned to their personality because they are hands-on children that like doing things. So study your child, find out the things that they like. Some children prefer a lot of graphics. You get them graphic books, you get them comics. Let them just get reading. If your child loves princesses or how to take care of babies, get them books that align with the kind of things that they like. So there are I have a child that loves non-fiction. He wants to find out how things work. He wants to read about history. So he's bored by storybooks. Then for that kind of child, you find non-fiction for the child. Just have to make the effort to find the right kind of book for your child. Then another thing that you have to do is that you have to remove the alternatives. Reading is supposed to be meant for leisure. Reading is supposed to be meant for leisure, but if children have other things that they do to make them have fun, they would abandon your reading for you. So what do? Remove those alternatives, those things that distract. Maybe they can't watch TV, they can't use their gadgets, they can't play video game unless they have done their 20 minutes of reading daily. Let the gadgets be the reward for reading. Because if you just say read and then there are no checks and balances in place, trust me, the children will not read. So as part of you creating a structure and a system, ensure that you remove those things that might act as distractions for them. Ensure that you do that. And then that way you find out that they might pay more attention to books. And with time, they will find out that actually reading can be fun. Then another thing we should understand is that because like I said earlier, children get impatient these days because they have not learned focus. They've not learned concentration. So if you want to give a child a big book to read, the child might lose interest fast, or the child might even be discouraged by the size of the book. If the book is too big, they'll just conclude that they can't possibly finish the book. So they might not even start, or they'll read one chapter and stop. So for those children that have not become avid readers yet, what you should do is to start with smaller books with bigger fonts and a lot of pictures. They have a sense of accomplishment if in one sitting of 20 minutes, they started and completed the book, regardless of their ages. Don't say, oh, because he's 10 years old, I have to give him a fat book. No. If he hasn't been reading all along, you could start with the books that pique his interest on one hand, but it's small enough for him to be able to finish in one sitting so that he'll have that sense of accomplishment. It's supposed to be a gradual process that you do consistently over time. And if you keep at it, I guarantee you're going to have results. So I just want to do a quick run through of what I said that you can do to help your children with reading. Number one, you as a parent, you have to model it. If you don't model it, if your children don't see it anywhere, they will not pick it up. So you pay the price and model it. Secondly, I said you have to create structures that make sure that they have the time to read. It could be bedtime stories for the younger children. It could be 30 minutes of reading before they go to bed. It could be reading before they can use their gadgets. Make sure it is structured into their day and then follow through. You could use rewards. Like I said, even using their gadgets could be a reward. You could use those kind of rewards. And I said you should make it fun. Throw your reading parties, read together with them. Don't try to impose it on them. Just let it be your family culture. This is the time of bonding for everybody as a family. And that way it will become fun for them. If you could, if the fathers can get involved, it would even be more productive. And like I'd also said, remove the distractions. Remove the distractions, the things that will compete with their attention as far as books are concerned. Remove them. You could say during the week they might not watch TV, or they can't watch TV at a particular time in the day. Remove the distractions, and then pay the price to find out what their preferred book genres are. Pay the price, find out, and give them what they actually like. They are there. They are there. And then make the investment of having the books all over the place. Do you have a library at home, or do you have a bookshelf in their rooms? What do you have? So like I said, if we might not have community libraries, but schools have libraries, encourage your child to borrow books from the library. Encourage your child. You could write it, like I said, in their communication pad, and request that the teacher makes the child go to the school library to borrow books. And then when they get home, you make sure that they actually read the books they borrow and probably provide summaries for you. And then peradventure, you want to get books for your children. I also want to tell you that you have the alternative of getting pre-loved books that are not too expensive. Yes, you have pre-loved books, so you can curate your own library at home. And if you want that service, you can reach out to us, send us a message. I want to curate my library for my children. We can help you with your selection, so you can have diverse books in your selection. We can help you with pre-loved books, and we can help you with new books. If you want that, please let us know. And then another thing I know that is a problem with us parents is consistency. Consistency. We know a lot of us know what we are supposed to do if we tell ourselves the truth. But the question is, are we being consistent? We might tell them one day, and then the following day we don't do it. Or we ourselves, we don't even read books. So that is why we also are looking at starting up an accountability circle. An accountability circle where we'll keep ourselves accountable. And in due course, we'll send out a message to our team members and members of our community. And if you want to be a part of this accountability circle, we will all form the circle. And that will not just be for reading books, but for a lot of other things that we have talked about in this community with regards to developing structure, with regards to following up with the structure you developed, with regards to helping your children to do their very best and put their best foot forward with regards to their academics, and with regards also, like I said, to reading. So when we are set with the accountability circle, we will put out the message in there, because I know that without consistency, everything that we have said today might not make any difference in your life. I don't know whether you have learned something new. Is there anything you're taking away from this session? I would really appreciate if you just put out something there in the comments section. What is that one thing that stood out for you? What is the punchline? What's that action point that you are going to take going forward from this session? And peradventure you have any questions, please feel free to field the questions as well. So that is about it for our session this evening, and we hope to hear from you. Reading is bonding time. That is a good punchline. Reading time should be bonding time. Building structure is the way to start. Thank you so much, Mommy. I can see you. Thank you so much, Mommy. What's the light bulb moment for you? Consistency. Consistency is the thing. They mustn't be for 1 hour at a time. Even if it is 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Actually, 20 minutes is the recommended minimum per day. If they can do 20 minutes, it's awesome, but let them be consistent with the 20 minutes rather than do an hour today and they wouldn't do any other thing for the next week. So consistency is the key, and I hope that this accountability circle will flag off soon, and I'll see you as part of that circle, because I am so intent on seeing us as parents proactively rise up to our responsibility of raising outstanding children. So thank you so much for being a part of this session this evening, and thank you for your comments. Please invite others to actually either join our Facebook group or watch also on our Instagram page so that they'll also be part of what we are doing. I'm very grateful to have had you log in this evening to be a part of this. Thank you so much. And once again, Learning World is your partner in raising outstanding children.